checklist of things you should have or do before launching your mobile game or your game. How many of you have launched the game till now? Okay, okay, not so many. Okay, I find from the part of making games, I find this part really exciting because everyone thinks that making a game is just like going to the launching phase and then releasing the game and magically will generate revenue and you will get like a lot of views. Everyone will look at the store and download your game and stuff like that, and it doesn't happen like that at all. So this part is like, if you're doing a game, and that's a saying I heard in America, which is amazing. It's like the first 90% of the game is as hard as the second 90% of the game, which means that when you think your game is finished, it's not, and you still have to do everything here to make it done. So my name is Jorge Castaño. I am the CEO of Amazing Soul Game, company based in Colombia, South America. I co-founded in 2013 with a couple friends. We have worked for video games for the government. We have made advert games, educational games. We founded like a meetup place in Medellin, my city, where we meet all the video games community of the city meet every 2 weeks. Lately, we became the official Unity user group of the city, that forum I'm talking about. And we were chosen this year to be part of Game Founders, which is one of the biggest video games accelerators in the world. So right now, we're working for 3 months in Kuala Lumpur, being mentored by amazing people and being tough, like really crazy stuff that we didn't think before coming here. We soft-launched Warrior Rush on April this year. It's still not on tier 1 countries, so it's small countries just for this game. We were featured in the App Store as best new games in 48 countries. We have a rating of 4.8 on the Play Store. And we have created like several revenue, like good revenue from the game, but not as much as we want. So right now we're iterating the game, we're tweaking the game. That's why it's still in soft launch phase. Okay, so the checklist. So there are 5 important things that you have to do, have, think, plan before launching the game. First is knowing the market. And I know it's really easy for people to say, you know, like everyone loves runner. Who doesn't like runners? Of course, my game is a runner. It will create big success in every market I put it in. And that's actually a mistake that most of indies make. So the global market is growing, yes, but it's becoming, like every time it grows, it becomes more specific. So you have to plan who will you get your game to. So it's a $100 billion market with 8.5 of increase every year. It's interesting to see that 58 of the revenue in the video games community comes from Asia Pacific area. So that's actually quite amazing when you start planning where do you want to launch your game. Okay, revenue. So first 2 markets, China, United States, are the biggest markets. But I'm going to talk about this later on. But their average revenue per user is quite low. So where they lack in quality, let's say it that way, they do have numbers. And they do have different things that they look in games. So the top 20 countries in the world generate almost 90% of the revenue of the video games market. And that's quite interesting, because then you have to plan. You have to think, who are you showing the game to? Who are like your main clients? And who do you expect to generate revenue from? For example, Japanese market has one of the biggest average revenue per user in the world. It generates 1.93 on iOS and 4.16 on the apps in the Play Store. I'm sorry, and that's incredible. That's like really, really high. We're talking, and let's start to compare. For example, U.S. market. Look at the average revenue per user in U.S. market compared to the Japanese market, and as you can see, it's like amazing. So again, as I said, when you want to launch your game, you just not say, everyone loves Runner, I'm going to go worldwide and expect to deliver worldwide. You have to focus on what are you delivering and to who. For example, Japanese market has 80% of Japanese, like language Japanese games. So you have to think on localization. You have to think what they want and how they do it. Japanese language, it's really hard to translate. So it's not just as easy as having an English version of the game and then doing some like just copy translation and that's it. It's not that easy because in Japanese, I can speak a little bit Japanese, and you translate ideas different from language, different from English language, I'm sorry. So you have to start from there just for language. And then you see that the top charts of the game are based on RPG, puzzle, and trading card game, different to US, which is just like really casual strategy games and casino games. And that's actually a fun fact about US, and casino games monetize the most there. So there's a market for casino games in United States, which, I'm sorry, which there is not in Japan and generally in Asia. So as soon as you start making the pre-production for your game, as soon as you start game design, do the game design of your game, you've got to think about all this. In terms of revenue, you can see also the difference. A game rank 1 in Japan generates almost $1.5 million per day, compared to the States, which generates only 400,000. And you can also see the number of downloads of the game. It's way, way, way bigger in America. So in the States, it's 170,000, and in Japan, just 52,000, sorry. So first thing of the checklist, if you want to go worldwide, think better of what countries do you want to focus on first so you can get the client everything they need, everything they're hoping for, and then you can start going from there abroad, making the changes you're needed and making everything you need to launch in other countries. Okay, so know your market first. Second, game design. And I will not talk about game design as how to make the game fun, but more about how to create like a meta game around what you have created. So it's not just as easy as saying my game is fun, people play it, and that's okay with me, and I will launch it. So you have to focus on retention. Is how are you making your clients, how are you making players come back? You have to focus on engagement, and that's how I'm gonna keep them playing, how I'm gonna keep them not only coming back as retention, but how I'm gonna give them features that they can finish into the game and think like, I want to play this game because I want to reach this or that goal. And also virality, how I'm making the game viral between people. And that's actually quite a big issue right now because CPI, cost per install, worldwide has gone up in the last years. So you have to design a way to make your game viral without spending that much money into marketing. So that's one of the things you have to think. And of course, monetization is how are you turning those people that are playing your game into paying users. And as we saw in the previous slides, turning players into payers in Japan is easier if you have a good strategy rather than in America or China that you have bigger markets, but some of them, most of them, are not willing to spend that much money into your game. So a great example is Puzzles and Dragons. Puzzles and Dragons, it's in essence a really, really simple game. It's a match 3 puzzle game. You just have to match orbs, and depending on the color of the orb you just match, then it will attack an enemy showed in the screen. And the game has been alive since 2013, doing great. Um, at one point, the revenues were 4 million per day. It was top one in Japan a couple years ago, and 4 millions per day, just like from a freemium game, it's an amazing feat to deliver. Right now, up until May 2016, we still see that Puzzles and Dragons is in the top 5 grossing games of the world, starting with Monster Strike, which is also Japanese, and it generates a monthly revenue of $65 million. That's quite a huge number. And that's not free. That's not like they decided one day they will make a game. They will not think on retention, on engagement, on virality. It's a really, really well-designed game. And when you start like seeing the patterns in game, you just start to realize that making games, making a business out of games, is not about just sitting with your team and making a fun game, but it's more about thinking also on the business behind what you're making. The average revenue per monthly active users, as you can see, the biggest is Monster Strike and Puzzles and Dragons. Both are Japanese. Both of their main target and main market is Japan, which makes my first statement more clear. It's like, plan your market, plan how's going to be your launch, and do it. So, when you design a game, especially a mobile one, you have to focus on 4 main things. People play mobile games while they're transiting the city or wherever they're going. It needs to be easy to play, especially like one thumb will be amazing. It has to have a game loop that it can repeat infinitely. 2 minutes, maybe 3 or top 4 or 5, but more than that, you will just lose the player. So players want to take, when you're in the train or bus or whatever they're using, they will stand here and start playing for 2 minutes, maximum 3 or 4, and then they close it. If the game loop is not finished before they close they close the game, then you certainly lost him because you're not monetizing him. You will not keep him because his session is like halfway through and you haven't shown him what he must do, and then he's lost. Also, 30-minute session, and this is done most of the time by stamina. So you can play, for example, in Clash Royale, you play like 5 or 6 games before running out of Crown Chest, which is like your main objective to play Clash Royale for 30 minutes. You have to make progression by 7 days, so you have to reward the player to come back and make like the small loop will be the core loop, which is 2 minutes, but then you have to make like bigger loops to make him come back. And that will be 7 days, because one of the core analytics that you have to take from the game is your day 7 retention. And I will explain that later, but that's mainly because 73 of the revenue comes from the 7-day to more. So 73% of the people that will invest or pay your game will do it 7 days after they installed it. So you have to keep them there to make that happen. So core loop in Puzzle Dragon is really, really simple. You spend stamina, you go into dungeons. Dungeons give amazing rewards, will be monsters. You evolve monsters, you use the meta game to create a better team, and then you have to wait for your stamina to be replenished. And this is how they make things work in money for them. So retention. Of course, everything gives rewards. Like when you're approaching a client, where you're approaching your user, you have to make him feel special. Not special like they can finish the game since the first time they play it, but special as what you're making counts. What you're actually paying will pay off. And that payoff, it's amazing. Like, oh my God, I just played a 2 minutes session and I have 5 new monsters. And I feel great, you know? And you're actually not giving them anything, but you're giving them the seed to buy more and to keep coming, of course. Engagement is how are you making them stay and then potentially become a buyer. So as I said, stamina, you start spending stamina to go into dungeons. But then in Puzzles and Dragons, you have to think about more of a deeper strategy and what are you making with your monsters. So of course, as the game continues, your monsters become weaker. Maybe there's some bosses that come around that are really, really powerful, and now you need a new team to beat them. And that team is like a longer term strategy that you have to think of in more than just matching orbs. That big strategy is what makes Puzzles and Dragons the success is today. So they monetize with random monsters. So instead of just telling the player that he can go into the store, buy a monster, put the monster in the team, and win, they randomize the whole thing. So there's like a gacha. You pay gems, or even with soft currency, you can get like lower level monsters, and then you get a random monsters. So it's like many great things happening in one mechanic. So you randomize rewards, which makes him want to buy again, because maybe I'll get the monster I want, and you make him repeat stages that he already finished, because I need that monster. So if in a dungeon that I already spent stamina on, I can get by, I don't know, chance of 5%, the monster, the great monster I want, then we'll do it again and again. I'll keep spending stamina, rewards will keep being random, and then I can monetize him better. Virality in the game is not its strongest part, but it's still really peculiar. They don't have a chat. They don't have invite friends or like stuff you normally see in games, but they do have like a PAL point system. So every time you go into a dungeon, you can invite a monster from a friend. That monster will help you. That monster will be, sometimes they will put like a better monster that the ones you have, so you can, you know, my friend has better monsters, I want to have that, I want to pay now to be better than my friend. And every time you finish a dungeon, you get to add him as a friend, the monster you just used, and your friend has PAL points. PAL points like a friend point. So with friend points, you buy more monsters, of course. That's the whole idea of the game. And then you feel like you need to help more people. The more you help people, the more you will appear in their friend list. So the more you get PAL points. So it becomes like a loop of virality that where you put your monsters for your friends to use, they use it, and you get rewards by not doing anything. Just like my friends use my monsters, I get rewards. It's a win-win for everyone, of course, because I monetize that, and they get better rewards and better things from the game. Okay, so game design in terms of retention, virality, engagement, and monetization, you have to think that before you want to launch your game. Then comes a part that we didn't put that much effort into, and then I wish somebody would told me how important that was, because you are locked in a room with your team for 6, 7 months making a game, and you think it's awesome. You show it to your mother, awesome game. You show it to your friends, even more awesome. You even invite them to come to your office, and then you're like, you know, you have to check this game. This is so amazing, and it has monsters and explosions and samurais and ninjas and a bunch of stuff. And it will always keep being an awesome game until you go to your player, to your user, and then it sucks. And that's like always happens if you don't test the game. So testing the game, again, from the perspective of a business is not about how fun the game is. That's a fact. Like your game has to be fun. That's it. If you don't have a fun game, there's nothing you can do to make it happen. But when you have a fun game, that's not um, that's not like a lot of revenue will come to that game because it's fun. You still have to do all the game design I just told you about. And then in terms of analytics and in terms of testing, there are four main things that you have to test before releasing your game. So retention, get, I don't know, make an investment of a couple $100, get buy players from the country that you're marketing on. And again, I come to the first point. What market are you going into? And then you can do a little research, see what other country behaves like that country that you want to get like ultimately into. And then you can buy a couple hundred users, 200, 300, 400, whatever you want, and start testing your game on them. They don't know you. They have no idea who you are, so they will be tough. They will be cruel, they will be real, and they will be like your clients. So make that soft launch, make that user approach before launching your game, before going viral, before getting real. So first, retention on day 1, day 7, day 30. Day 7 is really important because I told you 73% of the payers are turned into payers after day 7. But day 30, it was what's give you like the core loop monetization thing. So after day 30, you are sure you have your user and they will be loyal user because not many people go after day 30 on a game. So you have to make sure you have the enough content for him to go through your game even after day 30, or be prepared to generate that content on and on and on. And of course, you have to make sure that they are engaging, they're going viral with more people. So you have to test when are they quitting, because they will quit. A lot will quit. So why are they quitting? When are they quitting? And how is that making them feel? So what parts of my game make them want to quit, right? Learning curve is really important, and it was one of the main issues for us for the desertion of our soft launch. And it's that a game that is too hard is frustrating to the point that you will just quit, but a game too easy will just be boring. So you have to, and we'll see that later, you have to make a curve of difficulty to the point where you make him feel powerful enough to beat the game, but not powerful enough to beat the final boss of that special part. And then you can ask him, like, hey, do you want to beat this boss like right now? There is an amazing 99 cents buy you can make to beat him now. Or even not as straightforward as that, but you can tell him, but you know what? I will give you a help, and you can invite 5 of your friends to come to the game. I'll give you the monster, I'll give you the sword, I'll give you the power, whatever you want, so you can beat that level. But not to the point where they say, okay, this level is impossible, I will just go away. Because there are thousands more games they can install right now for free, and they will be better. And monetization is, when are you turning players into payers? When are you turning them, and why? So why are they deciding to buy that currency, that thing that you want to make them pay? So KPIs. This is like a really simple way to put how your game will make money. So you buy installs, or you buy marketing, or you buy ads, or whatever you want to call it, that's CPI. You buy players into your game. Then you have to make some retention. You have to turn them into monthly average users. You have to convert them into the game to keep them going on. You have to make them turn into payers. You will have, of course, a churn rate, which is the number of people that will drop your game before doing anything. But if you if you add up the retention and conversion of your players, then you have the thing that we're all looking for, which is the LTV, lifetime value. So how much is a person worth in your game? How much is the average a person will spend in your game? And if that number, lifetime value, it's higher than the cost of install per user, so if your LTV is higher than your CPI, then you have a good game that you can start marketing on. You know it's a win-win. You know that it's expensive to buy a user, but you also know that on average, that user will end up putting more money in the game than the cost you just made to acquire him. So, and in the testing, it's all about the first minutes. It's all about how you take the user, how you take him by the hand and start showing him what he needs, what you need him to know about the game. And in this, Clash Royale makes an amazing example. So when you start the game, they don't show you anything. They just show you the king and say, you are the chosen one. You have to save the country. And of course, this is how you do it. And they put it in a really, really simple way. It's just, this is your deck. You have 4 cards, which are amazing, and they look pretty. And then you take a card, turn them into the unit, and then you destroy the others' towers and eventually the base. And you win. And it's amazing to win, because you know, you get chest. And in the chest, you get more units. And in the units, you get like awesome stuff. You can win more. You can start beating your friends, and you will spend, and that's a cool thing. There is no stamina in Clash Royale, but instead, there's like a crown chest. So when you finish, every time you beat a player, you get 3 points. Every time you get 10 points, you get a crown chest. But then if you keep playing, you will not get that many rewards from the game, because you already have the crown chest, right? So the only thing I'm getting is coins. And I don't know you, but for me, it was not worth keep playing just for coins, right? So then I will have to wait for a couple hours to get my crown chest back, so I can start again into my 30-minute session, just as the game design point, and then I will get more rewards. So that's, again, engagement. So how am I making a player come back without taking all the fun in it? Because when I start playing Clash Royale, I wanted to come back just because of the crown chest. And the fact that I couldn't do it every time, it add up to, you know, my feeling about I want to have this right now. So right now, retention in mobile games, it has like a standard point that you have to get to in order to go into a publisher or investor, or even when you're self-publishing, you have to have like the certain amount of numbers to make it work. So you know that, okay, I'm going to the right path. And that's normally around 60% for day one. If you still have 60% of the people that download your game after the first day, that's a good number. So you're doing things good. So you're making them feel good about playing your game, which is the ultimate goal. And on day 7 will be around 30%. That's like a good number. Most of the game on average have like maybe 40 to 50 on day 1, and then 20, maybe 17 to 23 on day 7, which is still a good number, but you have to, your objective is this. If you have this, you can keep working on turning those players into players. Second is difficulty. And then this is the primary role of the tutorial. And there's, I want to come again to this part. And then it's all about the first minutes. So if you take a player and you start showing him how cool is your game, how much stuff he can do, and then you drop him to a place where he feels he's useless and he's not doing as good as you show him that he could do, you will certainly drop it. And the thing about tutorials is that nobody thinks about them before they release the game. That's the last thing you do when you're making games because everyone forgets about tutorials. You've been working 7 months in your office, everyone knows the game, everyone knows how it works, how to be powerful in your game, and then you release it and you realize that people actually don't, and they don't understand. People in general don't understand the game if you don't take him by the hand and show him step by step what they need to do to make the game work. Of course, production, after you finish your game and you're about to launch, and then someone says, "Oh, and where's the tutorial?" Of course, everyone just freaks out, and production managers just big headache, and he wants to kill someone. So progression. And progression goes directly to the engagement item. How are you making the user feel that he's getting somewhere? That he's not just finishing that match because he's getting a new unit. Because that's not enough. That's enough in the tutorial on the first sorry, in the first couple days, you can do that. It's like, okay, you get these rewards, and they're cool, but when he gets used to it, then you start losing him because you're not showing him what bigger objective can he get to. For example, in Clash Royale, they have arenas. In Monster Strike, they have different levels that there's like a huge path of levels that you want to go, and then you keep monetizing them. You spend stamina, you keep buying stamina, you do the core loop again and again and again, but not just the core loop for my reward right now, but the core, like the bigger core loop, but as what do I want to get from playing this game for 30 days? And of course, monetization. In the tutorial, please give something to your player, and that's really important. So apps with tutorials that introduce in-app purchases items have 2.5 times more chance to convert a player into a payer. So please do this, and every time you play the tutorial on a new user, show him how to buy your stuff, what can be bought, and give him that. Every time you give presents to players, they feel better to buy them again, and they will do. Also, make your game so there are plenty of items to monetize on. The more choices you give to your player, the more choices they have to spend the money, the more they can relate to any item in particular. If you just let them buy energy and 2 swords, maybe I don't like swords, and maybe I do my 30 session play and I'm done, and that's it. So every time you give them more items, then they prefer to pay more. Okay, so that's for testing. Now marketing. And this is a tough one because marketing is expensive. I'm indie, I know most of you are indies, so it's hard to market a game, especially if you don't have any money to do so. But there are certain things that are zero budget, must have things on marketing that will make your life so much easier when you're launching a game. So first is have a trailer, 90 seconds or less, that's the rule. It has to have plenty of gameplay, how your game will look. And I've seen a lot of cool trailers around when you see like huge cinematics and beautiful art and explosions and sound and awesome music, and by the end of the trailer, you just have no idea what the game is about. You're like, okay, this was cool for a movie, maybe. If you have any reviews, and you can send those to, maybe send a build for YouTuber stuff, put reviews there. Even if they're not that important, just the fact that somebody said that your game is good makes it good for others. So put reviews there, and of course an action call button. So after you see the trailer, what can I do next? And that's actually not that common into trailers and into market pieces. Is that okay? I think this game's great. What do I do? Okay, where do I buy it? If it's not out, where do I keep seeing news, or when is it coming out? Or okay, so like make me do something with the information you just gave me. Screenshots. They have to be well lit. Most of dark frame screenshots do not pay off, only if they're like a horror game, and you have to show the player what he will expect from your game. High resolution, because you never know what are you using your screenshot on, and later that will go into your press release, and you have someone interested in your press release, and you have a really tiny screenshot that is worth nothing. And of course, in the screenshot, you have to sell your unique selling point. Okay, so what's cool about your game? Why should I download it? The conversion rate on stores is really, really low. It's less than 20%. So if every 100 people that see your game on the store, actually 20% of them or less will download it. That's a really crappy conversion rate, but it's like that. So you have to optimize your chance for that player to download your game. You have to make a press release, and I highly recommend you going to dopresskit.com. That's a template. It's really easy. Many people work with that right now. The press release has to have, of course, the trailer, which I just told you about, screenshots, contact information, and a summary of what is the game about, how do I play it, what platform is for, when is it coming out, if it's out, where do I find it? So that's like the whole information I've been giving you. It has to be in the press release, but more like not like a landing page that is its objective is the player, but more like a business approach that you want actually reviewers or people from the press to know, like what is your game about? And we know it's cool, but what else? Landing page, of course. It's recommended that the landing page has no navigation because you lose many of the people is lost in the first 1 or 2 clicks. If I have to click more than 2 times to get to the information I need, I will just go elsewhere. So no navigation on the landing page. Again, if you have a trailer, put it there, put your screenshots, and sell your game. So try to sell me the game. Development block is also free. It's a lot of work, but most of the times it pay off. Because when you have a development block, everyone gets to see what you're doing, and when you have a good relation with the community, then you can start testing your game since the moment you're making it. So that's actually quite interesting. Bitcake Studio, it's a studio from Brazil, and they even made a Trello. Trello is like a want to be done, doing, done. And they have all the open development on the Trello. So people actually get to put things they want to see in the game inside that. And it's 100% open. So you see what they're working on, how they're doing it, what's going to be next, and you can comment on the Trello. You just comment like, you know, guys, I would love to have this feature or that one, and then you can, like in the whole community, start talking about it and see how the game goes. This is a good example. Fun Run is a 2D runner multiplayer racing game. It was in the top 1 of United States for about 5 months. They had 0 budget. They released in, I think it was September, if I remember. And they had none, like not at all users. And 2 months later, they decided to go on a Twitter campaign. And they start getting like 2 times as many users as they used to have. And they discovered that in their campaign, the Twitter campaign, they could hashtag FunRun, and people will just start like challenging each other with the hashtag FunRun. And it was a trending hashtag in the world in Twitter. And it's absolutely free. You have you need nothing. You just need to create a hashtag with your game and then start making your marketing from there. Free, absolutely free. Rich media. So you're an unknown team with an unknown game, and you say, okay, so of course I'm not going to PewDiePie to ask him for a feature video in his YouTube channel, but you can actually go to smaller YouTubers, maybe 5,000, 20,000, 50,000 subscription YouTubers, and they are willing to put your game in their page. And we tried this, and it was actually better than we thought it would be. Because when you go to bigger, like the biggest YouTubers, they have no time. They even don't check their email. They have too many things to do. But when you go to the smaller one, they don't even ask for money. Most of them are just like really nice, really kind people. Don't try to be like be polite, but don't be like really serious. Be friendly, be humble. It's like, I like your channel. I know you have 10,000 subscribers. I think my game will fit into your channel. Is there any chance that my game could be in ad? And most of the time, the smallest one reply with a good answer. Even if they don't agree to do it for free, you still have the contact. And it's really important always to keep the contact. That's the thing that will keep you like at long. Okay, so marketing, done. So again, let's do a quick survey. Know your market, where are you launching, and what are the specific things about that market. Game design your KPIs. How are you retaining your users, turning them into payers? Test the game before it comes out, and market it for zero budget. And then post-launch. Post-launch, it was not the main objective of this talk, but it's still important to plan it before you go live. Couple years ago, it was just build game and launch, and everyone was happy, and you had premium games, and people paid $30, $40, $50 for a game, and it's cool. But now, you have to look into the whole picture, and it's huge. Like, okay, you launch a game. How are you retaining your users? Do you have a customer service? How are you managing your analytics? How are you creating content that your users want? Because one thing is to keep creating content, and when you're making a game, it's 10 levels, and you have 15 levels ready. So you have the big upgrade ready. But then you realize that people don't like levels. They prefer to metagame into something else. Then like you lost all the work that you have already done. And that's important to plan. It's like, okay, here my clients, hear what they're saying, what do they say about the game, what do they want from the game, and start planning that since the moment you go out. So 5 things in the checklist already checked. I think we have time for questions, 15 minutes more. Thank you so much. And whatever questions you have, if I can, I'll gladly answer them. Okay, everything clear? Okay.
Hello. So just now under the marketing topic, you guys mentioned about using trailers, screenshots, development blocks, but you didn't really mention about social media marketing. Like you mentioned about fun run, you making use of Twitter, but do you have any specific examples or any advice regarding, say, publishing a Facebook page or a Facebook group for your company or for your game? So how to go about doing that?
Yes. Yes, and that depends also on the market. So, for example, Facebook, Twitter campaigns in the West are really strong, but not that strong on the East market. So those are also free. You can also, what you put in your development blog, it's not just for Trello. You can also make a Facebook page with your game and start posting there all the things that you're doing. So of course, all those options are possible, are doable, like we're already doing them. Use media coverage much as you can, and it's free. Like use every social platform that you have or you can to make it happen. So yeah, that's a good advice.
Hi. Okay. About the marketing again. This is in regards to crowdfunding. Should I go to marketing phase before or after crowdfunding? Because if you do it before the crowdfunding, yes, it might attract more people, but you might be going through a lot of changes, and the final might be really different from what you presented during the marketing process.
Yes, so crowdfunding, there's like a split opinion about crowdfunding right now because of how things have gone with it. So some people say it's not worth crowdfunding because that's like a full-time job, and most of the money that you get are for like rewards and maybe some of it for development, but you can actually get that money from elsewhere than doing the crowdfunding. So before going to a crowdfunding campaign, you have to make sure like what's your goal there. So is your goal only to do marketing? If that's the goal, you can put just like a small amount of money that you're actually crowdfunding, and you can make it happen. So, for example, Kickstarter is a great platform for marketing your game. But if you are making the crowdfunding to get like the whole investment for the game, I will not recommend it because people can see like what stage of the game are you in. When you crowdfund something, you're making it public. So if you don't deliver, that's actually quite harsh. And the users right now are really say that like really mean to the developers who don't deliver. I'm not sure if that's the word, but they will make your life as miserable as they can. And there's social media for that, and so easy to go wrong with a crowdfunding campaign. So before you go into that, you have to think, well, what's your objective? And if your objective is like you already have that planned out, then you can proceed. Like, how can I make it happen?
Yes, hi. You mentioned earlier that you need to find out when your users are quitting. So how exactly do you go about doing that? You just ask them, or there's something in your game that tracks when's the last time they actually played, or how's it go?
Okay, yeah. So for that, we like you should use analytics. So you put, for example, we use Unity Ads, of course, Unity Analytics. Excuse me, and you can put flags all over, especially in the first minutes. So the first minutes is where almost all the people are dropping out of your game, right? So you start putting as many flags as you can. For example, our game is a runner, so we start putting flags like on every jump the character made, like what part of the level is he dying and why. And with those analytics, then you can like redesign the game. The good part about going about mobile games, you can update as many times as you want, and you of course lose people, but it's not that many people. So you can like keep going into what clicks are they making in what parts. For example, is pretty amazing to see the clicks or the taps they make in the menu. So you get actually to see like if you put that on a graphic, it's like a whole part of the retry button for us was like really red. Like people are doing this a lot, but not for the shop. So if that's happening, you have to change the layout of your user interface somehow to make the shop more accessible to the user. Because if they keep just tapping on the retry button, you will never turn them into payers. So that's why you use analytics. And in the beginning, in the tutorial part, use analytics for everything. If you can measure every tap they make, it's good information for you.
Yeah. In terms of analytics, when you track during user testing, how do you go about coming up with a set of things that you want to track compared to after you have launched and you found out that like maybe there's this particular call that you initially realized that you didn't track when you did your soft launch? Is there ever a case like this?
Can you repeat again?
So in terms of analytics, like what to track, like for example, the tutorial or how many times a user goes to the store page, right, of what to track. Is there any case where you've come across where you decided that have this set of analytics to track, but I missed out something, and you only realized that after launch?
It happens all the time. I think in every game happens that. You think that you did some testing before going live, and then it turns out that, and especially happens with the market, it happens that, of course, I'm testing with local people because I'm not live yet. So I tested in my country, and everyone loves the user interface. But then I try to test it in another country, and it blows over. It's like they have no idea where they're tapping, where do they go, and why. And then you have to make changes right away. So you just take that game from the market and start changing versions of the game to make it, better, like a better approach to that specific market you're on.
Anyone else?
So let's say you have a bad launch. What would be the most effective strategy to recover from that or to gain back players that you've lost along the way?
Okay, so first is raise your retention rate. So the first thing you have to do when you have a bad launch, and that's a tough decision to make, is either let the game die if there's no future in it and keep working on the next one, because that's the goal, like to keep a production line going on at the same time. Or you start thinking about recovering your game from the bad spot that's in. So the advice is to start making little changes to raise at least your retention rate. So your game had a bad launch because it's not retaining the users. So you're not turning users into people that actually pay for the game. And before worrying about if they're going to pay or not or how much they're paying, you have to worry if they're coming back and why are they coming back. So after a bad launch, it's all about analytics, where are they dropping, and raising retention rate. So again, we go to is the game too difficult? It's the game they're not understanding anything? And then you can keep working on those small features to raise the retention rate. If the retention rate doesn't come up after all those little details you're making into gameplay, then you can think more serious about dropping the game and working on the next one. If it keeps going up and you can see, okay, this is I can rescue the game, just keep doing it. Keep putting updates and updates and updates until you get the KPIs you need.
No more?
No? No more? Okay. Thank you, everyone. And I can gladly have a talk with every one of you. I'll be around walking. If you want to approach me, I'll gladly have a talk. Okay. Thank you.